This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. Today's discussion is Apple, the best of times, the worst of times. So here's the situation with Apple, which has been, of course, the most crazily successful company probably of our generation. Anybody who's been following business the last 2 decades. And here's the best of times, the worst of times. The best of times, it now has become the number one mobile phone seller in the world ahead of South Korea's Samsung. And that's fascinating. Apple sold about 235 million units last year. Samsung sold about 226 million units last year. For people that aren't familiar, this is the first time Samsung has held that lead since 2010, 14 years in a row. Last year was the first year where Apple beat Samsung. And so that's great news for Apple because that ecosystem created by the iPhone is so important to everything else that Apple does. That's fantastic on their end. Best of times. Worst of times, we're at a spot where overall people are holding on to their iPhones longer than they used to, their mobile phones longer than they used to. So it's become slower and slower to pop out huge sales numbers because people aren't buying them as quickly as they did. I know in our family, we now hold on to them until they're broken, until they have to be replaced. And that's certainly something was said by a great analyst recently, that iPhones and mobile phones have become like washing machines where people don't replace them based on a new thing. They replace them when they're broken. So that's the worst of times, some slowing in that. And that's such an engine for all of Apple's growth. In terms of also the worst of times, Apple has been the number one cap company for now, it seems like as long as I can remember. It recently was dethroned by Microsoft, which keeps on popping out business lines, whether it's Azure cloud services, all their software that big companies run on, their LinkedIn. They have so many different pieces of the business today, Activision Blizzard, the gaming company, where now Microsoft has become today's leader in market cap with a higher market cap than Apple. Those will fluctuate back and forth, but Apple's down about 5% this year. Microsoft remains up, and so we'll see how that continues to play out. So Apple wins on mobile phones, but mobile phone sales are slowing some in general throughout the world, and then Apple loses on market cap to Microsoft. That's the best times, worst of times. Again, thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. If you listen to this all the way through, text me, 773-766-5322. If you're the first person to text and you haven't done this in a while, we'll send you the $100 mic, the Amazon gift certificate we send to people sometimes for listening to make sure people are listening and so forth would be great. And then also feel free, buy our book, Blocking and Tackling, co-authored with Grace Keller, 60 Keys to Building a Business and Managing Your Money, available at Amazon. Thank you so much for joining us on the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. And thank you to our wonderful producer, Chanel Bunger, the best in the business. Thank you very much.